Anyway, well, speaking of foreign policy, Ryan, big new drop site report based on a tranche of emails that you all have obtained. And you have some insight into a week in the life of Jeffrey Epstein and Alan Dershowitz circa 2006.
That's right. And maybe we should finish this block playing the Barry Weiss, Alan Dershowitz clip because it's so... You've got the clip. Excellent. Thank you, Griffin. So in 2006, there was a watershed moment in kind of U.S.-Israel relations when Stephen Walt, who was at the time the dean of the Harvard Kennedy School, and John Mearsheimer, who was one of the top international relations professors at the University of Chicago, published a paper called The Israel Lobby. It also ran in the London Review of Books. And you would think, okay, that's the most boring thing I can think of. Like two academics published a paper that also ran in the London Review of Books. Okay, that's interesting. But why is the entire world supposed to care about that? The world lit up on fire. It is shot through with all of these caveats and apologetics that they're even broaching this subject, but they make a basic argument that a loose coalition of supporters of Israel in the United States have built a network and a lobbying infrastructure that has given Israel outsized influence on American foreign policy, and at times has driven American foreign policy away from its own national interests and toward the interests of Israel. That was viewed as an absolutely shocking thing to say in polite society. And what genuinely concerned the lobby was particularly that Walt was saying it, because Walt, and Mearsheimer was at the time very highly respected. He is today a highly respected academic among people like us, but he took a huge hit in his reputation inside academia as a result of the pushback against this. Walt was, as the dean of the academic school of Harvard's Kennedy School, that's like the plum position in that field. Like that's the dean of all of it, not just Harvard, but basically all of it. So to have somebody like him saying this, the fear was that this was going to open up, that this was going to create a permission structure for people just to debate and talk openly about the influence of the pro-Israel lobby in the United States. And so that had to be shut down. And the pushback against it was like anything academia had really ever seen. Talks were canceled. It's like some pre-cancel culture type of stuff going on. What we're reporting over at Dropsite. Two other details. One, who was president of Harvard at the time? Epstein buddy, Larry Summers.
You guessed it.
Who was either the main funder or one of the top funders of the Kennedy School? Les Wexner, the Wexner Foundation. And who controlled the Wexner Foundation's money? Jeffrey Epstein. So all those facts are known. Now what we know from
Epstein himself was donating heavily to Harvard at the time as well.
And Epstein himself was too.
Okay.
But he was more influential for his control of Wexner's fortune. But he himself was giving millions. But now what we can report from his inbox, which, as I mentioned last week, we currently have exclusive access to, thanks to distributed denial of secrets, which is making they're making it available to other journalists as well, is that Epstein himself was involved with Dershowitz in kind of circulating Dershowitz, giving feedback to Dershowitz's counter argument, which the school published, and helping to circulate it. And so he was involved. He was directly involved in the coordinated campaign to undermine this paper, which means that a paper making a claim that a loose kind of collection of pro-Israel supporters are leveraging their money and their resources and their connections was undermined by a loose coalition of Israel supporters operating behind the scenes, using their connections and their financial resources. And as you said, so it's disconnected from this pushback. But that same week, in in the inbox,
Mm-hmm.
we found Dershowitz and Epstein going back and forth over Epstein's latest sex abuse allegation. And this one was from somebody who said she was 14 when she was abused. And you have Epstein with this kind of list of reasons why this girl's credibility should be called into question. Things that she had said on the internet.
Because he had hired a private detective, you're reporting,
right,
to follow this girl around.
Or to at least to research her. Yeah, I don't know if if he was following or if it was just like online research. This was like 1 week
virtually
of research.
Following. Okay.
Right. May have gone beyond that. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But what we know is that they unearthed a bunch of dirt on this girl. And he's saying, and so they're going back and forth. Dershowitz telling Dershowitz, who was his lawyer in this case, to give this to the state attorney to tell him that he should not be going forward with these charges because this girl is not to be believed. So that was the twin campaigns that they were running at the time.
Just these inboxes, because there are multiple, are such wild glimpses into what was happening behind the scenes and how elites are operating, not just Epstein and Dershowitz and Summers, but more broadly. And that last bit, Ryan, is particularly irritating because you'll remember when it was Rising. There was an episode of Rising where Alan Dershowitz was booked, and it was you, Robbie, and me. And at one point, Dershowitz flew off the handle and said that we wouldn't have wanted John Adams to defend the Boston massacre, the British in the Boston massacre case, which is, I think, when you're looking at these emails that you have about a private investigator being hired by Jeffrey Epstein to dig up dirt on a 14-year-old girl, the obvious difference, you don't even need to know that was happening behind the scenes to make the case that the obvious difference is John Adams believed with every fiber of his being that he was doing the right thing, that he was defending. He wasn't just a defense attorney. He was defending the right cause, that his side was correct in this case. Did Dershowitz think that Jeffrey Epstein was just clean as a whistle, had never done anything wrong, morally pure? Of course not. Of course not.
Right.
That's laughable.
And their relationship over working together on the Israel lobby actually is directly relevant to this claim, because let's say, okay, use the John Adams argument where you say, even our worst enemies in our fair system
absolutely
deserve representation. So that's the argument. But what if you also found out that John Adams was secretly working behind the scenes with the British on other unrelated matters in order to undermine other people, showing that they actually are a team, that they are not, that it is not that Adams is just defending the principle that everybody deserves a good lawyer. It's not that Dershowitz is representing Epstein, even though he understands he's an awful person, but he thinks that everybody deserves an attorney. Like, that's clearly not what, that's clearly not what is happening with Dershowitz, because he's working with him secretly to undermine Mearsheimer and Walt's book.
Right.
That has nothing to do, you're not required to do that. Like, you clearly believe that he's your ally in this effort, in this ideological effort. So I think we can dispense with this idea that Dershowitz was a reluctant defender of Epstein, and he did it on the principle that everybody deserves an attorney.
It's also amazing
because he was secretly working with him on this Israel lobby book.
It's amazing to go back and think of the early days of Dershowitz's self-defense of his relationship with Epstein, and then compare what he said then to what we're seeing behind the scenes in these emails that I'm sure he never thought would see the light of day, which is, whatever they're talking about, Mearsheimer or the case, they were not just business colleagues and they were not just casual business acquaintances. They had a close relationship. Obviously, they had a close relationship.
They were
close conspirators. They were, they were allies. They were, I don't mean conspirators in a legal sense. It just means that they were behind the scenes operating closely together. Obviously, in this case, there's a little conspiring that's taking place. But it's just, I think, worth thinking back to how he said, yeah, well, I defended him as his lawyer, met with him a couple of times. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, what the defense was back then, but laughable at this point.
Yeah, and Dershowitz is the man that Barry Weiss wants to hold up as a paragon of serious, center left charisma.
Yep.
The kind of person that's going to bring young people back. So Griffin, if you have this, let's play it and play the whole thing because it's
you
funny.
got some guff.
Yeah, people tried to community note this and say that she didn't actually talk about Dana Loesch and Dershowitz, but it's like, no, you have to watch for like 3 whole minutes and then she gets into that.
Yeah, keep your attention span, folks.
Yeah, so keep your attention span. You can roll it at 2x, but here is an impersonation of an old person's version of a young person. Let's roll this.
All of us see the moment that we're in. And all of us see that the choices that it feels like we have sometimes, which is Hassan Piker and Tucker Carlson or Nick Fuentes and, Andrew Tate, the kind of people
Hassan
that are
Piker, by the way, has said that CBS is trying to get him to do a debate.
Incredible.
But go ahead. Yeah.
Those don't actually represent our values. And I don't think that they represent the values and the worldview of the vast majority of Americans. And so this is an opportunity to speak for the 75%, for the people that are on the center left and the center right that still believe in equality of opportunity, that still believe passionately in the American project, that still believe in all of the things that everyone in this room believes in, which is liberty and freedom and individual responsibility and in the most basic level, the right to know what is actually going on in the world. Not the world as propagandists and ideologues imagine it to be, but what's actually going on in the world and in your community. So you can make decisions about where to send your kids to school, about where to live, and about how to vote. That used to just be normal. And the goal of what we're trying to do at CBS is to get back to that normalcy. And I feel incredibly energized and enthusiastic because I think that is where the vast majority of Americans actually are.
Well,
and Ryan, this is recent, right?
So that articulation of that set of goals to speak into the lives of the 75%, how are you going to do that? What's your strategy for success?
So I think one of the problems is a lot of people have tried to do centrist news. I know this because I am like the target audience for those things. And the reason that they have all failed is it's like trying to force feed spinach down someone's throat, right? It's felt very like tofu, oatmeal. It's like centrist news is choosing the midpoint between every single topic. It's felt like an absence of charisma and identity. And I, as nostalgic as people might be for an era in which 30 million Americans every night watch Walter Cronkite and saw him as the voice of truth, and I understand why they're nostalgic for that. We're not going back to that. So how do you build trust in a moment of unbelievably low trust in all of our public institutions, especially the mainstream press? I don't think it's by pretending like we can go back to having a view from nowhere. I think it's about who's in the room, right? I think it's about redrawing the lines of what falls in the 40-yard lines of acceptable debate and acceptable American politics and culture. And I don't mean that in like a censorious gatekeeping way. I mean having people that are clearly identifiably on the center left and on the center right in conversation with each other. And we've been doing so much of this at the Free Press. I was in, where was I? Chicago. Last week, I think I've lost all track of time, where Dana Loesch, former spokeswoman from the NRA, was debating Alan Dershowitz on guns. Now, these are people that have wildly different opinions on the Second Amendment, and yet showing that they can have good faith, very passionate, very charismatic disagreement and still like each other at the end of the day. We think it's important. And so for me, it's always about the curation, like who's in the room, how are you showing centrist news, not as the absence of disagreement and the absence of charisma, but explicitly charismatic and disagreeable, and yet doing it in good faith. And the other way you do it is, by being really honest with your audience. Like,
I think we get it. Yeah. Incredible. Also, so I said Glenn went and found it. When he found it, it had 850 views. Let's.
This was like
here
24 hours ago. Where are we
This is
at
24
now?
hours ago. Let's see how it's doing. 4.3.
Okay.
So I think Barry's video has been viewed like 8 or 10 million times at this point. Talking about Dershowitz as a charismatic
The
leader.
drop site clip.
Yeah, we put and we put this link here underneath, and it still was only able to drive 4.3 thousand views to this Free Press and Fire present Alan Dershowitz versus Dana Loesch.
I will defend these conversations that Fire is doing with the Free Press because they've been not just with those quote unquote centrists. And I don't think, by the way, Dana Loesch is a centrist at all. I think it's crazy to call Dana Loesch a center right.
No,
I like Dana Loesch, but what's the commonality? I saw people reacting this. Dershowitz and Loesch are both ardent defenders of American support for Israel and of Israel itself. And so I think that's genuinely quite interesting. Yeah, right. I actually think that's interesting. So, like Dana, again, like I actually do like Dana. She's not, I would not describe her as center right. She's like a rock ribbed conservative. Whereas Dershowitz, you can definitely describe as center. And I don't know, you can definitely describe him as charismatic.
Yeah. And he's a Trump supporter. And when he talks about Gaza, he talks in the most extremist genocidal terms.
Yes.
Like yet somehow that it's allowed to count as center,
but that's
center left even, because clearly she didn't mean that Dana's the center left one. So he must be saying that Alan Dershowitz, a Trump supporting genocidal maniac, is actually on the center left, which is like,
because he was arguing for gun control and he has social left, social liberal perspectives, and that's where this discussion about what constitutes center left versus center right, it's really about temperament, and I feel like that's what's actually being described as like Barry doesn't want people
guns. He's like center left on guns.
Barry doesn't want people who are, I would say, temperamentally anti-establishment.
Right.
So
he's probably pro-choice too.
Well, people who are impugning the motives of the political establishment, or who started using the phrase "the Epstein class." I like that. People who are impugning the motives of the Epstein class.
He's got people mad about that.
You can think whatever you want about guns, but if you're impugning the motives of the Epstein class, that's what gets you sort of like in the red zone. To continue those mixed metaphor, for a lesbian, she should have better sports metaphors. Right at the ready,
inside the 40-yard line. Anyway, but so as I mentioned while she was talking, Hassan Piker said that CBS News has been reaching out to him to try to set up a debate, which is comical since like she's explicitly saying that he's the kind of person that should not be allowed in conversation.
He was fun on trigonometry. I watched the whole thing last night.
What? Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Excellent. Well, looking forward to that one.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.